You ever wonder what makes a ghost story really work? I mean, what makes it get under your skin? It's not just about the jump scares, right? It's all about structure, tension, and a little bit of psychology. So today, we're going to do something cool. We're going to take apart a classic haunting, piece by piece, and see exactly how the blueprint of fear is put together. Every great horror story kicks off with a hook, and this is a masterclass. It starts with something we all want, right? A dream home. And then it just infects that dream with a terrifying secret. It doesn't spell it out, but it promises this journey into darkness. You can't help but ask, what's hiding in those walls? All right, so here's our game plan. We'll start off in their perfect dream home, then we'll start to hear the first whispers. From there, we'll get into the escalating fear before we finally uncover the attic's terrible secret. And we'll wrap it all up by looking at the anatomy of a haunting to see how all these pieces fit together to create that feeling of dread we love so much. Okay, first up, the exposition. You can think of this as the calm before the storm. See, every good story needs to set a baseline. It has to show us a normal world with people we can relate to, just so it can completely shatter that world later on. Just listen to that, the pure, unfiltered joy in Sarah's voice. It's even more perfect than I imagined. Horror writers do this for a reason, you know? They build up this bright, happy before picture to make the darkness of the after feel so much worse. It's simple, really. The higher you build up that hope, the more devastating it is when it all comes crashing down. And here they are, the classic horror duo. You've got the believer and the skeptic. Sarah is the creative type, open to things, and, yeah, easily spooked. Mark, he's the practical one, the anchor to reality. This isn't just about character development. It's a storytelling engine. The real tension isn't just going to be between them and the ghost, it's going to be between the two of them. And that brings us right into the rising action. This is the moment the first cracks start to show in that perfect dream. It's that very first sign that something is very, very wrong here. So notice how it all starts. It's not with a door slamming shut or a ghost appearing. Nope, it's with a faint whisper, something you could easily dismiss. Is it real? Is it just the old house settling? That ambiguity, that's the seed of psychological horror. It forces Sarah, and us, to start questioning what's real. And listen to the whisper itself. It's just a fragment. She said, never. You can't quite make sense of it, and that's the whole point. It's not just a spooky noise. It's a piece of a puzzle. It makes you lean in, you know? You're trying to figure out the mystery, not just waiting for the next jump scare. But of course, the rising action has to keep rising. That's the name of the game. So the haunting gets worse. And just as importantly, the conflict between Sarah and Mark gets a whole lot worse too. And right here, you can feel Sarah's shift. She's gone from being quietly uncertain to this desperate plea for someone else to hear it too. She needs Mark to believe her, because if he does, then she knows she's not going crazy. The fear is real to her, and she needs an ally. But she doesn't get one. And honestly, Mark's very logical, very reasonable explanation is almost more terrifying than the whispers themselves. Why? Because it completely isolates Sarah and her own fear. The ghost isn't just in the house anymore. It's driving a wedge right between them. And that's where the real psychological torment starts. And you can just see the slow burn laid out perfectly here. It's so methodical. Week 1, it's faint whispers you can kind of ignore. But by week 4, it's an overwhelming cacophony. This slow, deliberate build is what creates that unbearable, can't look away tension. Okay, so all of that tension has to be leading somewhere, right? It has to break. And that brings us to part 3, the climax. This is the peak of the mountain, the point of no return, where our characters have to face this thing head on. And this is the trigger. The ghost is done being subtle. The whisper is sharp, it's angry, and then it gets physical with that loud creak. It's almost like the spirit is screaming, "You're not listening, so I'm gonna force you to look." It is actively pushing them toward the source. So as they head into the attic, the ghost gives them one last crucial piece of the puzzle. This isn't just a random spooky line. It's a clue. There's a secret literally buried inside the house, and the ghost is pointing them right to it. And this is that moment of pure suspense. The story just stops and asks a direct question, forcing all of us to just hold our breath. We know the answer is right there, just on the other side of that wall, and you just know it's going to be bad. So what is it? A child's doll? This is what we call the cursed object. It's the physical anchor for all that supernatural energy. This single discovery validates every fear Sarah has ever had. The threat is 100% real. And now it has a face. And then this happens. The absolute peak of the horror. An object that should not be able to move, moves. This one impossible action just shatters any little bit of skepticism Mark had left. It's the final, terrifying confirmation that they are not alone, and it's the ultimate payoff for all that tension we've been feeling. Okay, wow. After a climax that intense, you've got to release that pressure. So for our final section, we're going to look at the aftermath, the escape, and then we're going to pull back the curtain and analyze the specific tricks the writer used to scare us so effectively. The escape is exactly what you'd expect. Fast and chaotic. They scream, they pack, they run for their lives. But the haunting gets one last word in. A child's laughter, followed by a final chilling whisper. Thank you. So they get out, they survive, but that mystery about what the ghost really wanted, that lingers. So what we just witnessed is a perfect example of something called Freytag's pyramid. Think about it. We started with the exposition, Sarah's joy in her new home. Then came the rising action, those whispers getting louder and louder. That all led to the climax in the attic, and finally, the falling action of their escape. It follows this classic structure perfectly. Understanding this pyramid is like having an X-ray for any story. It lets you see its skeleton. And these right here are the specific tools that this story used to build its house of horrors. You had the slow burn to build up that unbearable tension. You had sound being used as a weapon, the believer versus the skeptic to create that human conflict, the cursed object to make the ghost feel real, and of course, that big climactic reveal that pays off the whole journey. And that leaves us with one final, fascinating question. That thank you at the end, it changes everything, doesn't it? It makes you look back at the whole story in a different light. Was this ghost an evil entity trying to drive them out? Or was it just a trapped, desperate soul who needed their help to finally reveal a terrible secret? The best stories always leave you with a question like that, something that echoes in your mind long after it's over.